Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. My name is Esther Cahill-Keroni, for those of you who don't know me. I'm the Executive Director of Script to Screen and the Director of the Big Screen Symposium. It was 3 years ago now that many of us were here for the first ever Big Screen Symposium, looking forward to a weekend where we could just park all that silly filmmaker angst and talk about what got us into it in the first place, the stories themselves, and talk about the stories behind the stories. And now we're here for a fourth year, and I'm pleased to say there's more of us coming over this weekend than ever before. Over 500 people have got behind the event, either by buying a ticket, supporting us as a sponsor, or agreeing to speak. So to all of you, on behalf of Script to Screen and of J&A Productions, welcome to the Big Screen Symposium 2015. A very special thank you and welcome to those who have travelled to be here. We're really honoured to welcome you here. Thank you. This year's program is anchored by the theme Strengthening Our Collaborative Spirit. Because although people are going to be talking about a huge range of diverse work, one thing that everybody shares is that they don't do it alone. It's a collaborative art. And I can remember over the years, always when we hear people speak, those people who keep making films, who manage to keep making films, always talk about their key relationships and the people that they work with over and over again as being such an important part of what they do, of being a crucial part. And so we're really, really thrilled to kind of just make that the theme, something that really sits at the heart of it all. The statistics of women who hold key places in the industry are absolutely dismal and frankly inexcusable. And I put a challenge out there to all of us in this room to do what we can to change that. And I'm really proud to say that our program is not at all representative of those statistics this year. We have a whole lot of women in key spots, amazing women who have made amazing work, and I'm delighted, really, really delighted about that. And a lot of them who we like to call our own. Jane Campion, Alison McLean, Bridget Ikin. It's really exciting. So I just wanted to do a sort of special mention about that. It's also wonderful to have Anthony McCarten, who we also call our own and is our own, back. And a big welcome to Sebastian Silva, who's come from Chile to be with us, and to John Landau, who's travelled in from the States, Rachel Griffiths from Australia, and Liz Watts, who doesn't arrive until tonight, but in her absence, I say welcome anyway. We'll welcome her when she comes, and how wonderful to have her here. Before I go any further, I'd like to acknowledge our enormous gratitude to our funders, event partners, and sponsors who make this possible. We'd like to thank the New Zealand Film Commission for their wholehearted support of this event, both financially and for all coming up here and being in this room and buying a ticket. So thank you, the New Zealand Film Commission. We really, really value that support. Thank you to our generous accommodation partner, Pullman Auckland, for once again putting our guests up in style. Thank you to our event partner, Images and Sound, and their amazing team. And a big thank you to New Zealand On Air for their continued support. Thank you to the University of Auckland as a whole, and in particular to the Film, Media and Television Department for hosting the Big Screen Symposium. Thank you for jumping back on board South Pacific Pictures, Park Road Post-Production, Canon, APRA AMCOS, and a big warm welcome to the Random Group and SAE Institute. Thank you all for your support. Thank you to the guilds and industry organisations who have really got behind the event. Special mention to WIFT, Women in Film and Television, the New Zealand Writers Guild, Ngā Aho Whakaari, the Director and Editors Guild of New Zealand, and Actors Equity. And the biggest thanks of all goes to all of you who have bought tickets for this weekend. We can safely say once again that the majority financier of this event is you guys, the participants. Have a fantastic weekend. I'm now going to hand you over to Brita McVeigh, who is moderating this first session. She's also the chair of the Script to Screen board. before I do that, I'd like to mention one last thing that's really important, and that is that Diane Taylor. Diane, could you stand up, please? She'll hate this, look. Diane Taylor was a long-standing chair of Script to Screen. She was the chair of Script to Screen. She came into that position the same time as I became the executive director and has worked tirelessly for this organisation over the last 4.5 years. Could we just give Diane, and she's now stood down this chair. So yeah, thank you all so much for being here. I'm now going to hand over to our new chair, Brita McVeigh.
Thank you, Esther. Oh, it's quite weird. You guys will find it weird when you're first mic'd. Welcome everyone to the opening conversation of the Big Screen Symposium of this year. And that's what we're going to have. We've got a topic, collaborative magic. It doesn't happen by accident. Someone on the panel has just admitted they find it confusing. We will be attempting to make meaning of it in these 4 different ways as we talk over the next hour. We're not experts. Certainly I'm not. These guys are all just living their work. And I'm very proud to be able to warmly introduce them all. Now, I'm not going to introduce them in ways that is their long biographies, which are full of awards and esteemed work, all of them. Their biographies are on the websites and in the book. So you will all be, I'm sure, all too aware of who these guys are. But I am going to introduce them in ways that I think may be relevant for our conversation today. So Bridget Ikin is a producer. She started producing in 1983. She also learnt the piano and the violin as a child, which she regrets not sticking with. Her first love was acting, which she did at school and at university and took very seriously, and almost went to drama school, but decided to not. But her acting, in part, which she said herself, led her to producing. Anthony McCarten, filmmaker, writer, director, novelist, playwright. You're not looking at me. Producer. Made his first film in 1998?
Yeah.
Yes. First love was music.
Yep.
Played the guitar, sang, released an album. Worked as an actor, played a lot of Shakespearean roles in schools. 20-minute cut-downs?
Yep.
Yeah.
Shakespeare, King Lear in 20 minutes.
Yeah. Managed to start writing at the age of 17 as a journalist, which led to writing plays, which led to writing for screen.
Thank you.
Briar Grace-Smith. Writer of screenplays, short fiction, and plays for the theatre. Started writing tiny plays when she was a teenager, but prior to that, learnt the violin and played well from 7 to 14 when she stopped. But she still has her violin. Worked as an actor for 10 years. For 10 years as an actor, which led to writing devised theatre, then scripted plays, and then into writing for the screen. Sebastian Silva, Chile. 7-hour layover in Fiji yesterday, had a massage in a resort. But here...
The layover was like 9 hours.
Sorry, I got the facts wrong. Filmmaker, writer, director, producer. Are you a producer too?
Yeah.
Made his first film in 2007.
Yes.
Yes. Doesn't play an instrument.
I mean, I bought guitars and I've tried to play them, but I don't think you can say I play the guitar.
Yeah. But
I touch it.
He touches guitars. He touches guitars, but he made music for nearly 10 years, released many albums.
Yes, that's
Sings in a band and solo.
Yep.
A Calypso album.
Yep.
Yep.
We've got to have a jam later.
Yeah. And what have I got here for you? Oh, and has not studied acting or worked as an actor except played a lead role in his most recent film, which is coming out at the end of the month.
Right.
And is very good in it, yes. So that's who we're talking with today. The fundamentals of their collaborative selves may very well have taken seed in some of these things that run alongside or came before decisions to enter film. So I'm going to start with you, Bridget. Just to go off something that you said to me the other day, which is that you said lightly, which we just talked about, that you feel that your time and passion for acting, your primary passion as it was at the time, led in part to you becoming a producer, but must certainly have informed how you were as a producer when you first started. Would that be true? How do you think that might have affected it?
In lots of ways. It gave me a respect for the craft of acting and I suppose the germ of a lack of fear around actors, which I think is something that some producers struggle with, actually, the relationship with actors. And I think for me, a sort of a fearlessness generally in producing is, a kind of valuable aspect to producing, and a big part of that is the relationship with the cast. So I'm always interested in exploring, what makes actors tick, and feeling like, the diversity of language that they need to successfully understand, what a director might want is something that is constantly of interest to me. So I think it's part of who I am, a love of performance and acting, and although I chose not to pursue a career in it, it's very much, I would so recommend any writer or director or producer to study acting. I just think it's so fundamental to a sophisticated understanding of performance.
And performance, but also possibly the way that you relate as a collaborative person yourself in other relationships, perhaps?
Absolutely, yeah. Quite fundamental.
So some of your formative relationships were with John Maynard, Jane Campion, and Alison, who you're still working with, Alison McLean. Do you think it informed the way that you stepped in and learnt when you were started collaborating with them?
Well, thinking about this panel, I've discovered there's a number of words for me that start with F, which feed into this conversation, and the first one is fearlessness, but another one is friendship. And I just think all the collaborations for me that have been successful or enduring or, have been of value to me have been with friends. And before you even think about working together, the friendship has to come first. And because the contrary for me has been true, when I haven't put the time into developing a friendship, that's when the collaborations can go off the rails.
Yeah.
And I know you're interested in failed collaborations. So
well, if we get there, but that's interesting to me. Anthony, just on that, do you feel like, because you made 2 films here in New Zealand and had collaborative relationships here, and then relocated and wrote for a long time, and now have had a very successful film that came out of your situation overseas. Did you, just coming off exactly what Bridget said, did it feel like there were deep friendships that were in play under the theory of everything for you that supported that project in and around you? Or
No, that's probably the biggest sort of exception to the rule, that project. That was something where I was just rolling a rather large rock up a rather large mountain for 10 years, and for 5 years I was doing it on my own. So that is atypical of my experience working in film or any other medium. But that was by dint of the fact that no one was backing the project, and I was coming at the project through not Stephen Hawking. The film is about Stephen Hawking, but it was about him. But I was coming sort of from the angle of his ex-wife, and that meant I couldn't get authority, I couldn't get straight clearance from the great man, and I was coming through this other perspective on his life and marriage.
So was she, what would you have to say now was your primary collaborative relationship on that project? Was it Jane Hawking? I mean, obviously it's a long extended...
Yeah, but that was a testing one because, I literally stalked her. I got on a train, went to Cambridge, she'd just published her autobiography, and it was a sort of stinging, vengeful kind of there was a sort of negativity in there. She was a sort of anger. Mm-hmm. And I knocked at her door and said, listen, would you allow me, you don't know who I am, would you allow me to turn your life into a movie? And who wants that?
Did you really say exactly that?
Yeah, and she, God bless her, she didn't turn me away as a kook or anything. She invited me in for a glass of sherry. And my intention was to try and get her to agree to give me the rights. And I thought, well, it'll be simple. I'll just be charming as hell. And by the end of the sherry, she'll sign a piece of paper. Well, it's a measure of my charm that it took 8 years to get her to sign this piece of paper. Yeah. So it was a lot of afternoons and club sandwiches and sherry. Is that a collaborative relationship? I don't know.
Sebastian, you've worked with members of your family quite a lot, haven't you? You wrote a film with your sister. Your brothers have been in Crystal Fairy and the Magic Cactus. Your other brother's been in Nasty Baby.
Right.
Does that also set a temperature for the fact that it's family and friends that you work with? Is that how you... I don't want to put words in your mouth.
You already did.
Yeah.
No. No, actually, I think the reason why I work with my brothers is like it has to do with being also lazy and not reaching out, like not thinking of like what could be the best, but then I'm like, who could be the kind? And then I see my brother, he's like him. I'll be perfect. I'll be perfect. It's like really about like just like using whatever is at hand, you know, right. And like. So that's how I started collaborating with like I made a movie about a live-in maid that worked at my parents' house as I was growing up, right? And so I decided to make the story. So yeah, it made so much sense to have my brother in the movie because it was a story about my family, and he was kind of playing myself, or like a brother of mine. So I started working with him, and then I put him in different movies. But I mean, talking about collaboration, like same as you, I feel that friendship and like common sense and sharing a sense of humor for me is the most important thing when it comes down to collaboration. I don't care so much about the end product of what I'm doing, but more for the process. That's me. So yeah, when you're working with people that get you and you get them, the process of making it is like, it's what's worth and what am I doing it for. So I've collaborated with boyfriends, I've written with boyfriends, and I work with my brothers in many movies, and I don't usually ever hire art directors. I hire friends that have really good taste, and I like their apartments. Whoever I like how they have their rooms or their apartments, I'm like, hey, you want to like art direct my film? And so on. Like, editors, I work with friends that have never edited a film, but I really like their sense of timing and like how embarrassed they get by bad acting. Like, I think that's a really important trait for an editor. Like, whoever gets embarrassed by bad acting easily, I'm like, yeah, please, come in. So, I really look for people that think alike more than what have they made, you know, what's their CV. I don't care so much for that. I care much.
It sounds like you move instinctively and quite quickly, but are you sometimes careful and deliberate in who you select too? Yeah. See, follow my energy. Steady, steady. Yeah.
I guess with actors, yes.
Yeah, and within you.
But again, it's not it's a matter of like a personal connection with actors. Like I don't audition people. It makes me too embarrassed to have somebody in a room pretend that they're drowning, or that they're crying. It's just like it's so embarrassing. And why put them through that? So I usually, just sit with people and like, it's a matter of like just connecting on in a spiritual level and like in humor usually. Yeah, humor is really big.
And so on that to you, who works so much between theatre and film, and so often it can be that people will come from theatre into screen and then they'll stay in screen, whereas you've maintained a real, your heart's really still in theatre, isn't it? Well, actually, I'm putting words in your mouth. That's a question. Let's leave that as a rhetorical question, because that's not my actual question. My question is, given that you go into these collaborative relationships in film and then you go back into the theatre, is there something when you return to film each time that you want to bring in from the theatre, that you want to protect, you want to liberate, anything that...
Well, I think in theatre, there's a kind of unspoken, it's a really wonderful collaborative process. If you're a writer, you get treated very well, and there's a lot of, it's more human than film. So I'm in a room often workshopping my play with actors and a director. I can try things out and I feel really part of the process. And often in film and TV, I'm more isolated from the process of that kind of human contact. So that's what I kind of try now or enjoy or try and bring back into those screenwriting relationships with the director or whoever. And, it's totally possible. We don't do it as often as we could, I think.
Have you yet been in an environment where you've been able to write for screen and be working in a room with actors and a director?
Only like on set, I think.
Right.
Like when we were working on The Strength of Water, we're working with the children where some of the lines were quite poetic and they couldn't say them. They were getting stuck in their throat. And so those things as a writer where you kind of jump in because you want to retain the spirit of the story and not mess that up, but you have to make things simple and clear and, that suit the actor. Yeah.
And did that feel like a different collaborative role, to use that word, when you're actually right inside the aliveness of the process?
Yeah, it was exciting though. It was really exciting to be like right there, and then they're going to shoot those, and they're going to shoot it straight away. So that sort of immediacy was quite exciting.
Yeah.
But also in theatre, the wonderful thing I love and which I'm able to do is, and I guess in film you can totally do it too, is that actors for me play such a big part in defining the characters. They get very possessive of their character. So they play quite a big role in the workshop in telling me or arguing with me about my character wouldn't say this or would say that. So, and I enjoy that kind of tension between that goes on.
That just reminds me of, someone said to me once that, I'm going to take this to you, Anthony, that writing alone is often like a sort of an internal rehearsal process where you're living out a scene one way and you're effectively embodying it, and then maybe you scrap that and you rewrite it. Because you write novels, which is inherently so isolating, and then you come and you're writing screenplays, and presumably a lot more now, writing a lot more screenplays than novels, would that be?
Yeah.
So how do you go from that beautiful kind of you're the master of the whole thing with a novel to then the screenplay where you have to hand it away and receive the notes? Is that shifting for you? Is this food, being by yourself? And this is tricky, or how does it sit for you?
Yeah, I guess that it's a similar question. You're sort of suggesting that film is somehow a brutal industry, and
No.
no, but go. Okay, she's not saying that, but I think she's trying to say that. And we all work in these much more sort of other zones as well, like novels and plays, and it's so much more respectful of what we do, and we give them time and respect and so forth. But for me, the filmmaking thing is the perfect antidote to the isolation of being in the room, the novelist experience and stuff like that. And I absolutely crave it. And I love the absolute brutality of the filmmaking process, and that, it's about time, it's about...
You love the brutality of it.
Yeah. I
Can
love
you
the
explain
idea.
that a bit?
Well, I love the fact that the best idea wins, and when you're working with great people, the best ideas do win. But there's no time to piss about, and you go in, and it's like, shit, we've got a problem.
Have you got an example of this, something specific?
Just running with it is like someone wants, hey, we're shooting tomorrow, it's 2 pages long, we've got to get down to 1 page, and we have to lose this character. And it's like playing high-speed Sudoku or something, you know. And you go, Jesus, that's an interesting one, and how are we going to do that? And then people chip in and go, that's great, that's great, that's great. And you can get strange, wonderful things arising. Okay, I'll give you an example. We were working on the Stephen Hawking thing, and the actor playing him was Eddie Redmayne, and he had just gone and seen The Great Man, and he came back and he said, oh, at an advanced stage in this illness, Stephen, no one could understand him at all. He was slurring so heavily. And I'm just going to tell you that all my dialogue, no one's going to understand. Because I'm going there, and we need to have that. And the director said, oh, I think that's absolutely wonderful, Eddie.
So it was-
Yeah.
So it's just the 3 of you in the room?
Yeah, and I'm sitting in the room and go, well, there goes my BAFTA nomination. You know? And so we had to sort of, I had to save the dialogue. And so we came up with this idea. Well, I came up with this idea, and they liked it, that we had, Jane was the only one who could understand it. So Eddie would go, and she'd go, he just said that Einstein relativity is C over MC squared. And so it reinforced the language and his dependency on her, and it gave something wonderful to the relationship, that she became his conduit to the world. And that happens because of this intense pressure that's applied, and sometimes out of that filmmaking process, which is inhuman. You're not given unlimited time or resources and stuff, and you have to think on your feet, and you have to be good at it, and fast and quick, but that can be really uplifting and exciting.
Especially if you've got people around you who are going yes, yes with you.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
That you're inside a team where at least no one gets rigid.
Best idea wins. There's no ego.
Yeah.
No one's stepping on your idea because it's not mine. You thought of it, so it's a bad idea, you know. Yeah.
Bridget, when you were, I'm interested in seeing if you would extrapolate a little bit on something we talked about the other day, which was that fundamental thing you said, which follows on from what Anthony's saying about just everything being about trusting the process. He's talking about it under pressure. You were talking about it as an approach. Was that something that, trusting the process, that came like right from the get-go with you, or did you discover that through trial and error?
I think I've discovered that. That's hard, and you know, I'm still a learner in that area, because it's not like you have the same problems thrown at you. That the problems are always different, and I suppose you have to kind of it's a process of understanding yourself and realizing that, you know, unless you have a kind of lightness in your relationship to your work and almost I don't know, it's a strange sort of detachment, but attachment. You're sort of inside it and you're outside it. Yeah, I'm not explaining myself very well, but it's an intuitive process which has become more refined for me over the years, but I don't think it came fully formed, but it's an attitude towards what I do and the people I work with that I try and maintain.
Can you just explain, just to flesh it out a little bit more? Like, what do you think that attitude is inherently? What are the fundamentals of it? Trust the process. What does that mean? Trust that everything has value that happens?
There's a lot of components to it. It's about choosing the people you want to collaborate with carefully. It's about delegating properly. It's about not getting scared. You know, it's the fearlessness component again of
Or
just
getting scared and being honest about it.
true.
'Cause
Yeah, that's true.
we all
Admitting when
do.
we're scared.
Yeah.
I mean, even on this film, Alison and I, we sometimes wake up in the morning, we have a little cry, and you know, we're both scared. You
Yeah.
know, and then we just like put ourselves together and get on with the day. But
Yeah.
it's good to acknowledge that too. You know, you don't always know the answers. In fact, sometimes the people look to you to solve a problem, and you know, I'm just learning too. You know, the more familiar you are with the material, the more the answers are more likely to arrive for you. But it's not like anything comes fully formed. It's absolutely a process, and that's what I mean about trusting the process. You don't know the answers. You have to sit. You have to trust that sitting with uncertainty sometimes is where you've got to be for sometimes what seems like a scarily long time.
And it's so the opposite of what people can often think strength is when you're growing up, which is that if you act like an expert, everyone's going to follow you all the way to the edge. But actually being able to say, I don't know, and really allow the time for the right idea to win, or is a hard thing to come to. What about difficulties? Because you are somebody that strikes me as really trusting your process, and you work with people that I love that you say that you work with people that you share a sense of humour with.
Right.
Because it's such a fundamental kind of door into love there, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you're just right there with people as soon as you've got that and you trust it. If you've got that kind of innate flow and that instinct for the kind of people that you want to work with all the time, what happens if you get a disturbing surprise sometimes and you're working with someone where the collaboration might be unexpectedly challenging? Have you had that happen?
Yes. It's I don't know if you guys are familiar with Christopher Doyle.
Yes,
Yeah.
Wise DP.
Right.
Yeah, right.
So I worked with him in a movie called Magic, and he's known to be a very difficult DP to work with, right? He loves drinking and he's also like a rock star. He's like he started a new way of like shooting film, so he became like a really rock star DP, and like I was only so honored to work with him. And then they said he was available, but I was warned like, hey, listen, he's very difficult. And I'm like, well, let's see, you know. So I had a Skype meeting with him. And he seemed a little tipsy in this Skype meeting, but really friendly too. Like I'm like, you know, like he seems like a fun guy to be around. You know? And then that collaboration went to hell because he came down to Chile, and then first thing I knew, he was showing his genitals to everybody while we were camera testing. He knows how much I love him. He taught me a lot of things, and I was going to quote him when you were saying that you need to trust the process, because he was such a nightmare, truly. It became very difficult the collaboration, but I remember one thing he said that was like in film or like just in creative sort of processes, you do really what you can and not what you want, which I love and I use for myself since then. And it has really taught me how to trust processes, and like that what you can is really what you can do. Like some people like envision this like amazing epic films, and then you put the camera and it looks like shitty reality TV, you know, and then that's what you have, and that's what you did, and that's what you could do with the team you had and the time restraints and the money you had, you know. So I guess he said that to warn me that we're going to do what we can, not what you want. But you know what? It was like
Thank you for the way too.
But at the end of the day, that was like the most difficult collaboration I had, because on like usually a DP is your it's your accomplice, you know, it's like your partner in crime. And then I was clashing a lot with him, you know, like there was a lot of clashing and a lot of contradiction.
Quiet clashing or loud clashing?
Yeah, like clashing, like a lot of contradiction. I would be like, you know, I think we need a close-up. Now he's like, nah, I'm not giving you close-ups because that's HBO bullshit. And I'm like, no, I need a close-up of my main actress, please. And then, So then I would have to do it myself, and then the next morning he would talk to me because I took the camera. So it was like a crazy battle. Like I felt that I had a new dad that hated me and loved me, and I had to like learn how to deal with it. It made me only so much stronger. In the beginning, I wanted to fire him, and then I wanted to like move in with him at the end. Because he really toughened me up so much, like by contradicting and just being difficult. It made me stand up for myself and my decisions, you know, and not be afraid. That was a hard collaboration, going back to your question, but a collaboration that taught me so much. And I really, for whoever is like making movies or trying to make movies, I really think that we do what we can and not what we want is huge. And it might sound mediocre to some people, but it is such a truth. It is really like, you don't always get through the day with the results that you expected. Sometimes you're surprised, and days went on and there was way better than you thought, or a difficult scene was so easy to shoot, and you never expected it. But some days, you do not just get what you wanted. And then you have to go around in the editing room and accept that your movie has a lot of wounds, and then you need to heal them in the editing process, and then at the end of the film show like an imperfect movie because it was made by imperfect people. It only makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And also what I take from this trust your process, you've also taken it into you've got to trust yourself in order to trust the process, right? Kind of having something that comes at you that toughens you up means that it strengthens.
There's something about trusting yourself, and it's not about being insecure, but I think that fear is really important, because I think when you lose fear, then you really start failing. Like you really start making mistakes because there's nothing keeping you on the edge. And I think that's why I decided to act in my last movie, because I had made 5 feature films and I had learned the process of making movies, but I was not scared anymore. I was not as nervous as I had been before with my movies, and I needed that adrenaline again, and like a fear of failure. I feel that fear of failure makes you much more conscious of the process and detail, you know? I feel that when you sort of fall asleep on your self-confidence, then everybody's telling you yes, because nobody really gives a shit about yourself. Unless you have really good friends, but like there's a lot of people that don't really care ultimately for the outcome of your film more than yourself, you know? So they would just say yes because things are faster that way. So I feel that if you are not a person that is slightly scared or nervous about your skills, or then yeah, it's very possible that you'll end up making more mediocre films. I don't know. Does it make any sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
I think so.
I'm glad you think so. Briar, do you reckon you had a formative project or stage where you came into trusting yourself more deeply in order to trust in the process? Do you think there was a time when that happened, particularly, or did it happen slowly?
It's happened slowly. It's taken me a whole lot of experiences to realise. I think, you know, now I know more so what I want. You know, now I know what to, before I go into a project, I have a vision of what I would like it to be, and I'm more able to be vocal with my collaborative partners. Because I think if you don't know people, and often we're in this situation where we don't know people we're working with, you know, and it's a bit like getting into a canoe that's going down a treacherous river. It's like so incredibly exciting, especially if the idea is great, but you know you're going to run into rapids at some point, especially if it's a feature film, because it's a long process. So now I like to say really up front what our expectations are and what the vision we share is. If I don't have, as you talked about, a long friendship or history with people, because of times where I have, you know, it's also difficult when you are a Māori woman writer, because I've had to learn to work out why people want me on board a project, and sometimes that happens a little bit too late. And I go, oh my God, I'm incredibly hurt Like, I thought I was interesting, I thought I knew my craft, etc., etc. And I think I was just a tick in a box, you know, so I'm really alert to those things now and try and work that out quite early. And some of it is very instinctive, and others I have to ask questions.
Can be quite upfront.
Yeah, because it becomes very personal when it's also becomes about, you know, that your culture, you know, and who you are. And you are the one at the end of the day that is kind of responsible for that.
Very good to say. Bridget, you worked on a series of Aboriginal art, didn't you? A 6-part series with a whole Aboriginal team that you were leading. How was that as a collaborative experience for you?
I was asked to do it by an Aboriginal curator who became a good friend, and I would not have approached the project at all without relationship. Yeah. And I saw myself as a facilitator, more than as a creative producer on those series. It was six hours of for ABC television, and we went through each. Yeah, there were probably 30 different artists that we went to their communities and spoke to them, and it was a conversation between the curator and the artist, completely beautiful and fascinating. And I totally saw my role as being quite receded and just allowing this space to happen. Yeah, it was pretty amazing. But you know, there's been talk of doing a third series, and I just said it's not right for me to continue. I think an Indigenous producer should do it, not me.
And how was that received when you said that?
Oh, I felt that the second time around that no one put their hand up, so I did it slightly unwillingly, although I enjoyed it a lot. And this time I just said no. You know, I mean, it'll, you know, better that it doesn't happen unless someone stands up and does it. That is not me.
Was that a hard decision to come to?
No, it was the right decision.
But it arrived midway through the second season, or while you were in the process?
Towards the end of making the second series, it became completely clear to me that the instinct I'd had around not even producing the second series was the right one for me, and that there's no way that I would want to carry on doing it. Yeah.
Was there a particular thing or series of things that brought it into your consciousness, like when you were saying by the end of the second?
It goes back a long way for me. I worked for a number of years in the 90s for SBS television, you know, the broadcaster in Australia who is so kind of brilliant at supporting, you know, world television and diversity of cultures on screen. And my role there was to commission Australian work for the channel, which they really hadn't had the money to do before. And a big component of that was welcoming Aboriginal stories, which was actually a new phenomenon. I mean, now it's kind of, you know, it's like this major centrepiece of Australian storytelling, but at that time, in the mid-90s, it was, you know, it was just a germ of an idea and seeding very kind of, you know, fruitfully. And through working with Aboriginal filmmakers at that time, and also more broadly working with filmmakers from non-English speaking backgrounds, which was, you know, the broader kind of task of SBS, I became very attuned to the complexity of, or the, you know, the ways in which people speaking on behalf of other cultures can be totally inappropriate. And in essence, I feel that quite strongly, and I think you have to really argue the case for why you would want to speak on behalf of another culture, rather than in any way thinking that you are, you know, that it's okay. And so I've kind of held, you know, I've been very well trained up through that SBS system, if you like, which was, you know, came at a very fundamental time of my growing up in Australia, and, you know, it was a privilege to, be a part of that project and bring this
sounds like becomes an act of letting go for you when you're inside something that you're still loving but feeling like you know enough to know that you aren't the right person to be there. It's quite a fundamental thing to realise.
Yeah, I mean, I've sat on the other side of the table assessing projects for SBS, you know, for those years, and you know, the first question for me was always, is this project in the hands of the right people? Like, first question. They might have a brilliant idea, but if it felt like they were the right people to tell the story, that it just wouldn't happen. So this, yeah.
Anthony, what are you looking for now, do you reckon, really? And like, have you got projects where you feel like jazzed about the people that you're working with, particularly? Just because of the topic that we're talking about? Presumably you're jazzed about the material, but are there ones where it's about the team or the...
Yeah, no, I'm making a lot of decisions based on just the team. I said yes to a project with a guy called Thomas Alfredson, who did Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, and the project was a 1965 Swedish crime series, which I have zero interest in. But I'm super interested in him from the first frames of Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. I watched it and I thought, this is a very unique voice. So I flew over to Stockholm and spent a couple of days with him, and it's about the guy. It's about the guy, and I think we'll do something interesting. We don't know what it's going to be, but I think it will be interesting.
Oh, so it's not going to be the 1965?
No, we're going to do it, but how do you make that interesting now? How do you, with so much great crime on TV, what's going to be unique about this quite tedious, dated crime story?
You're so judgmental of it.
No, he's judgmental of that as well.
Whose idea is it then?
Oh, it was a defining classic Swedish crime series. There were 10 novels, and it
it's a
started
remake.
Swedish crime. It's written by a husband and wife, and it's absolutely a cornerstone of the history of crime writing. A lot of the Elmore Leonards and everything, they're all keying off this. So it's a sort of cornerstone sort of work. But how to make it interesting will all be about how we kick it off each other, how we spark with each other. I said to him, like, come on, we're going to have to come up with some cool stuff here, Thomas. It's just something you've always wanted to put into a movie that you've never been able to put into a movie, stuff like that. And he goes, yeah, I always wanted, with the meat thermometer, I always wanted someone to stab someone with the meat thermometer. And I said, why? And he said, because then you see the temperature going up. And I went, this guy's going to be good to work with. And that's the fun of it, the joy of it, and so we're going to use these seminal crime books just as a launch pad for his crazy, distorted, dark mind.
Clearly.
And I guess mine as well.
How do you relate to what Sebastian was talking about in terms of fear being an important part of the process?
Yeah,
where do you sit with that?
I can do without fear. I can get by without it. It does come with the territory. I've had opportunities offered to me in the last couple of years that I've spent 30 years waiting for, and they arrive, and you go, oh, I hope I don't fuck this up. And there's an enormous amount of attendant pressure that comes to bear, and you realize you've got to bring your A game, and I guess that's fear. And as long as you don't psych yourself out of it, you worked hard to get here, so let's see what you got.
Yeah. So how do you handle that? Do you do a thing where what's your process for making sure that you stay in or to use your language, that you don't psych yourself out? Do you have a way of doing that?
I had no sort of certainty that I'd be able to pull it off, but with these big prestige products, they're there and they've come to you, and your agents negotiated a wicked deal for you, and so you're getting paid well to deliver on the very highest level, and can you do it? And I had hadn't worked under that kind of pressure before, and you hope you can sort of stand up to it, but you don't know if you can. And then you finish it and you send it off, and you push send, and you send it, and you wait for a reaction. And
What's that waiting like?
you know, it's very, very tense. And then the first intimation comes back, we love it, and you go, okay, that's good. You know, I can stand up to that pressure. The pressure comes with the opportunity, and the bigger the opportunities, the more the pressure. But it's all about preparation then. It's all about all the work you've done over the years, all the experience, good and bad. It's all part of the manure of the whole thing.
The bad's so useful.
Yeah, you learn so much about it, what not to do, never do that again. So.
Great.
All the great ones are afraid, though. You know, you read about some of the great Hollywood directors, and you know, Frank Capra, his wife said that he used to drive to work, and there was a place he used to vomit every morning, and it was under one bridge, and he used to, like, 30 years vomit on the way to the street. And these are the greats, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Humans. Oh, they have a microphone.
yeah.
Okay, I mean, I think fear is part of it, and doubt for me. You know, I doubt myself a lot, but I use that as a kind of, there's a sort of tension in it which can be helpful.
Yeah, and maybe just to go back to what we were saying before, maybe just admitting it. I think there's something about a level of, okay, that helps you be, whatever the feeling is, that helps you be actually able to really engage. How do you find, well, you're pretty...
I mean, I'm thinking about fear, like, I think fear becomes a problem when it's paralyzed. Like, I mean, if there is it's dark and at night and then walking home drunk, and then there is a dog in front of you, if you stay paralyzed, then you'll get beaten. But if you move and run, then you'll get away from it. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's fear. Like, if fear makes you move somewhere, then it's good. And if fear paralyzes you.
It'll work because you have those the projects that are the bigger ones that have the pressure on them, and then you'll always you'll start making something else. Is that a manifestation of what you're talking about? Like,
No,
didn't you make Crystal Fairy?
Just the reality of, like, not getting my big projects done.
Really?
Yeah, it really is that, because you write movies that are bigger, you know, and like more ambitious, or that need more things, or they're too personal, that the budget is too big. So it's just not a good fit for the industry, whatever that industry is, you know. And so instead of like pushing for that one project that it seems so hard to get off the ground, I create projects that adapt to my reality as well. As my ambition is, my ambitious self is trying to get those big projects off the ground, I will continue to sort of develop my craft and perfection my craft while doing things that are possible to do, you know? Like the small movies that I've made, most of them, you know? Like, usually the movies that I've made are movies that I make in the meantime while I'm waiting for something else. But then that's been such a gift, because they lack pressure, and they seem so loose, and that's how I learned to make movies without screenplays, really. You know, like two of possibly the favorite movies that I've made, those 6 are my favorites, and they were both unscripted movies that I was like, okay, while we wait for this movie, why don't we shoot this fun story? And we would write like a 20-page outline and just go have fun with friends, you know? And those movies came out to be my favorites, and the more genuine ones with the best dialogues, because I didn't write them. And it was just people speaking, like real people speak, you know? And so, yeah, I forget the question, but...
Yeah, me too.
What?
How do you deal with fear? And you're an honest person. But do you ever admit it inside a process with collaborators?
Do I admit fear?
Yeah. Do you ever
soon as I give it to someone, I go, it's shit. Like, it's shit. And then I spend like, I go, just read it when you get a chance. And if they haven't gotten back to me like within 2 hours, I'm like, they hated it, they hated it. So I feel it's sort of after the act, you know, of giving it away.
And that hasn't changed? That stays the same?
No, it's the same. I think it might be worse, because I used to be like more naive and I was a little bit, I don't know, didn't think anyone would ever hurt me, but now I know they wouldn't hurt you.
I think that we've covered fear, doubt, trust, a little bit of love. Any other fundamental emotions that we haven't covered? Angered? Okay, we've got 5 minutes, guys, I think. I would suggest, I'll put does anyone agree that anger can be very healthy for the collaborative process? Has anyone got a comment on that? Has anyone got a situation where they believe anger was healthy for the collaborative process, or a situation where they believe it really wasn't?
I don't relate anger to the creative process, but I'm trying hard.
No, well that's an answer. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't use it.
No.
For me, the best collaborations are ones which where conflict is not inherent in the relationship. And you know, just talking to you about Christopher Doyle, there was a moment when I might have worked with him years ago, and I just thought he loves conflict's what drives him, and I don't thrive in that kind of environment. So because I choose not to work that way, anger's not really a component that is, you know, up my sleeve as a tool.
Well said. Elegantly said. Yeah. What about you?
I've lost it a few times, yeah. But for good reasons. Yeah, I was horribly betrayed. Betrayal, I think, kicks it off for me.
Yeah, right.
If I feel someone has really broken with the sort of the fellowship of what we're all doing, or done something which I just think is way over the line of what's acceptable, and the reason for it wasn't a good one, it was ego-driven or something like that. And then that, for me, is a complete severing of any interest in working with that person ever again. I'm quite ruthless about that. And you just go, I don't need this in my life, and we'll finish this and we'll never work again. So I guess that's productive.
I guess anger brings about honesty, if anything, you
Yeah.
know, like because you lose your shit and then you're like, and then you say something you would never have said if you were not angry. So I guess that's one positive thing that anger can bring to the creative process.
Yeah.
And there's some assholes in this business, for sure, you know, and you find a few, and you have to, you know, really not do business with these people, just for your own sanity.
Brian?
Yeah, I have. I think I've lost it. I can count twice. And I don't like conflict. And but it's been a learning experience for me about how to deal with that. I guess it's a similar thing where you feel, you know, betrayed in a way, and got hot-headed about it, and then thought about, if only I'd waited a day, I would have made these points, you know, and have an adult discussion. But yeah, it happens. But I try, you know, I feel like, because I have children and young children, I feel like they've taught me a lot as well about how people relationships and how to work with people and mediate and all of that stuff. So mostly I'm pretty good, but I have a couple of occasions I think I have quite fairly, I think, lost it. And my version of losing it might be different than other people's. Like maybe they didn't notice I just lost it. Completely lost it like 2 minutes ago.
Thank you guys for your honesty and for your experience that you have brought to this opening conversation, which I am now going to close. Can we give a round of applause?
part of your knees.
Pardon?
You will go down hard.
Who is the man that did this to you?
Stephen, Jane was telling me that you have a beautiful theorem. I get it?
So if you've called me in here to see if there's some strings I can pull in your way, of course. Is that what this is about?
Alicia, this is Frank.
Alicia,
Hi.
you made it.
How long have you been in Chile?
Longer than I expected.
Still leave.
Why? What are you afraid of?
Humiliating myself, wasting someone's valuable time.
Don't be so left-brained.
We all die. Everything we ever care about would disappear. So what's the fucking point of living?